Good morning. My name is Lisa Dazel. I'm from the Directorate Counselling and Career Development. Welcome to this session. We are calling it the Set Yourself Up for Success program. And we are hoping that the topics we will be covering in today and tomorrow's sessions will help you to be a successful UNISA student in an open distance and electronic learning environment. This morning, we're just going to spend some time with my colleagues, Triposa Tina Molekwa, as well as Elsimi Mol, and together we will be talking about getting organized, about time management, and also making effective notes. I've posted a message that you are welcome to send us your questions in the Q&A section now or during the presentations. We will try to answer the questions after each presentation and also at the end of all the sessions. First up, I would like to invite Ms. Molekwa to share her presentation with us, and she will be taking us through the Getting Organized section.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tina. As they've already introduced me, I'm Triposa Molekwa. I'm also part of the team in the Directorate for Career Counselling and Development. You have been invited and we said we are going to talk about getting organized. I am happy that we are in level 1 and things are going to ease up. But as they ease up, life is not stopping. We need to get organized with our exams preparation. So just as a start, I'm thinking many of us have been asking ourselves questions, how do we get organized? It is important that as we want to get organized, we should be aware that what does it mean? To be organized means you have to have order of the activities that you want to do, plan your tasks, negotiate your space, and be able to prioritize your time. I would like us just to engage onto what are the things that I need to get organized on. Majority of us as UNISA students, when I say us, I'm also a student as I'm speaking like this. I'm also an employee, but I'm aware that out there, ladies and gentlemen, you have chosen UNISA for distance learning as it allows you to be able to work, gain work experience, study, meaning you develop yourself to other positions of work, but also for some of you, you are family members in terms of whether you have started your own family or you are still part of a family in terms of you are still with your family, you are staying with your parents. So it does allow you to carry different caps as you are studying distance and you are not supposed to be away from your family. So, but when it has to come to being organized, it might be a challenge. So I'm saying, let us go back to get organized in the family, negotiate your space with your family. There are chores that you are responsible for. If you are a mom, you might be responsible for feeding the family, meaning you have to prepare meals. If you are a father, you have to organize and also assist your wife. And if you are a daughter or a son, it means there are other tasks that are mandated for you. So you need to negotiate during the time that you'll be preparing to study. So if it means you were responsible for chores like washing dishes, you can say to other family members, could you kindly do the dishes for me this week because I realize I am tied up with work. I am tied up with study work. And negotiate to say you will do it maybe the following week or that other week where you will be free. It is important that you negotiate with your family. The time that was set all along, time was free for everybody. But now that you've got a lot of work, I've seen and I've observed from the counseling emails that I've been communicating with students, majority of our students have taken a very bold step and they've registered 5 modules, meaning 4 to 5 modules. And that means one has to really prepare hard so that they can make it. So the time that you need in terms of the space, others might be watching a certain movie at that particular time that you wanted to study. Negotiate with them to either watch the backup movies that are coming or to just give you space during that time so that either you go and take a nap so as to rejuvenate yourself or to just leave the space where you want to occupy and study. As an employee at work, it's important that you negotiate with your fellow employees, communicate with your bosses, communicate with your supervisors. Of course, sometimes you might be yourself in a position where you've got tasks and responsibilities that require you. Like, for instance, you are the one that signs off registers, either of leave of other people, or you are the one that signs off certain important documents in the company. You don't leave them without a word. One of the steps that is formal in terms of negotiating at work is to inform your employer through formal procedures, which is to complete your leave. I can imagine if you did not complete a leave, you will sit in your study space uncertain, not being sure whether they know. Please don't take a chance and just say, I will just vanish, because it can have some implications. So negotiate your space, put in your leave, communicate and negotiate with other fellow colleagues to take responsibilities that are yours at that particular time that you will be away, either away for study and also during exam time. It is important that we also prepare our study material. Get organized around which books do I need for this particular module. I guess in the event that we were starting to get familiar with being at home, full-time, being locked down, all of us were occupying similar space or same space, and everything was all over. But now you really need to just set up for yourself to say, on this particular day, I want to go organize and check where is my textbook, where are my USB cables, where I've stored some information about past question papers, where is my where are my documents, what did I save them as? Then you start to organize them and put them. Where are the feedbacks that your lecturers have given you? Put them in order so that by the time you want to start to study, you are not running around looking for your material. So prepare your study material. Check your tutorial materials. Are they in order? Are the feedback materials in order? It is important that you also organize your study space. Your study space might involve you having a table. Yes, I know as people we study a different environment, but I'm just using a table as one that we formally, in the past years that we have been studying, we have been using a table. Some of you might be saying, myself, I don't use a table, I use my bed and it is working for me. But of course, at the moment, I want to talk about the table. With the table, make sure that you've got a table that will give you enough space for you to gather your material together and put them. Clear your table from any other document that can be something that can sidetrack you, like catalogs, magazines, newspapers, cluttered papers that have been cut. Clear it, make it, prepare it so that you set your mind and your space for studying. Look for a proper chair that will be supportive to your back, that will be supportive to your neck as you bend, that will be supportive to your eyes. A proper chair helps you not to fidget, not to feel uneasy, but it will sort of motivate you to want to sit and to study. If you are not getting a proper chair, find proper cushions that can support the same chair, meaning find something that is a bit firm And when you are seated in a firm chair, it allows you more time to sit. If you have set yourself time for an hour, I'm sorry, the light goes off if there is no movement. So you mustn't wonder and say, oh, and then she went. So if there is no movement, the light goes off. The other thing, it is the light in your room. The kind of light that you use to study, it's important. It should not be too much of a bright light into your eyes, or the light that is more dim. It should be proper light that supports your concentration, that supports your light, that you don't get tired easily. Room temperature is important. If you can check now, our temperatures are going up and down. So get ready for the right temperature. Secure a room where there is enough air circulation. The temperature is well adjusted, not too hot that you sleep in, or too cold that you find yourself feeling uneasy, trying to get things in always and to warm up yourself, but a temperature that will help you to be stable. It is also important to check the sound. We are wired differently. Some people prefer to study in a very quiet place. Yes, somebody in the background, I can hear they say, Tina, that is me. And of course, I can say I join you. I also prefer to study in the wee hours of the night, when it is very quiet. So if you prefer to study in the wee hours of the night, make sure that you sleep well early so that you can wake up and be fresh to can study. Somebody says, me, I don't like to study when it is very quiet. I need a little sound in the background. So get ready, prepare that sound system, whether it is your laptop that has that little bit of a music which doesn't have lyrics. The lyrics that will not, more especially songs that will not distract you. In the past, when I would have sessions, I would hear some students say, me, I want that goo, goo, goo. And the others will just laugh and say, oh, but Tom, that is not right. But yes, what can I say? As people, we are wired differently. So know how you are wired and what is it that helps you to best concentrate. If it is the quietness, use the wee hours of the time, or use a space where it is very quiet. And if you like background music, use the space where it is quiet. I know there are other people that says, I want to study away. I prefer to study while I also talk. Meaning there are people who are, we say they are auditory people. They learn best when they hear their sound. So those people, I remember I was doing a session in a place in Kronstadt, and one gentleman said, you know what, Tina, because I'm a person that learns by hearing myself, I recite what I read. I prefer to go to the park next to the place where I stay. I open my books there and I start to study my work, and I recite my work when I'm there. So know yourself, know your proper study space, use it as effective as you can, but also my topic today is that get organized into those spaces. It is important, guys, that we remove distractors. There are many distractions amongst us or around us. I'm wondering what comes to mind as I'm speaking like this. What is the number one distractor for you at this moment? Okay, I can just think because I'm not able to see you guys, but majority of you have mentioned in the past, or some of the students in the past mentioned that the cell phone is a distractor. And I'm like, oh, this beautiful thing, how is it a distractor? They say, every time I sit on WhatsApp, I get sidetracked. And of course, it is one of the things that you must get organized on. One, Know when are you going to take or to use your phone. If you are going to want to study and to study effective, switch off your phone. Somebody is grumbling and say, oh, what if something important is going to come? And I'm like, yes, there might be somebody, there can be somebody important. But how do you get organized? Set up a message, record yourself to say, I am not available at this particular time. If it is a week or it's at night or it's during the day and you are studying during the day, set up to say, these are the hours that I would need to check my WhatsApp messages. If you can check, honestly, not every message that you get on WhatsApp is important. Majority of them are just distractors. But if you've got a group discussion, inform them to say, I'll be preparing for this particular module. So guys, I might not be engaged with you on this day. Not that I'm deserting the group, but I will be preparing. I will give my input on this particular time. And make sure that you stick to your words. If you said, Mommy, I will not be taking your calls during this time. I will be taking them around 6 o'clock. Keep that time and go back to your people and just make that time to just set up your WhatsApp so that you will have effective work and you will be able to concentrate better. It is important that we organize study groups. Study groups can be a one-on-one where you've got a fellow student that you know, they know a certain portion of work that you are not strong at. I say click up with somebody where you are the weakest link and they are the strongest, you join hand in glove, you make a 50-50. Like I'll give you an example. There are certain modules which has got numeracy and theoretical work. Some of the people, even though you are doing one module, you would find that your fellow colleague is good with numbers, but you are good with theory. So it is important that you click up in that manner to know that we will hold in glove as they bring in their number, you bring in your theory, you hold each other, and at the end of the day, you both win. You get 100% pass. It is important that you join in WhatsApp groups, online discussions. There is a lot of online discussions, but the formal ones that we have at UNISA, it's when you keep up with your tutors, keep up with the feedbacks that you get with your lecturers, and further on, check past question papers with your fellow students and make sure that those things are organized and they are together. In the WhatsApp group, it is important to check, is this WhatsApp group profiting me? Am I gaining something? If you don't gain, in the sense that you find that the people in that group sometimes deviate and start to discuss things that are not academic related, maybe slip out. But if it's a group that is productive, my encouragement and my plea is that be part of the group, but not just as somebody who take, but also as somebody who gives some inputs. In Sotho, we say, what we mean is that this one hand wash the other hand. So we should be there to help one another, and together we win. What are the things that I need to organize, or what is it that I need to organize as a person? We always say a healthy mind in a healthy body. First of all, I would want to talk about food that we eat. For us to get ready, we need in advance to organize and to start eating healthy. Why? It is important to eat nutritious food because they will help us to concentrate better. If you check, majority of our people now are suffering from diseases that are coming from the kind of food that we eat. But as a student, I guess you already know yourself also to say, when I've eaten this type of food, I am able to sit and concentrate well. But when I've eaten this particular kind of food, I lose energy and I slumber and I lose a lot in terms of preparing. So my plea to you is that eat nutritious food like fish, vegetables, nuts, seeds, eggs. On top of that, drink plenty of water. Water is good. It is the best solution or best liquid that is able to help with the most part of our body. It is able to regulate our system, meaning in our stomach we need the water. For the brain to function well, we need water. So as you eat, as you study, please drink plenty of water. Stay away from junk food. Madam, how is that possible? Sure. Did you see how much work do I have? How do I get to not eat this? Some of you would want to eat potato chips. You would want to go and buy the bun chow. The bun chow, it is that piece of bread which is stuck with potato chips, polony, cheese, acha, closed with another piece on top. Yes, you say, I go for that because it's quick and it is always available. But just tell me, after you've eaten it, what happens? Okay, I can hear somebody's laughing in the background. They say, after I've eaten that piece, I just feel sleepy. I just feel that smart and nice call to go to my bed. I feel tired. Yes, you will feel tired because most of the food that are stuck in that bun chow, we call them dead food. So I'm saying when we eat dead food, part of the dying is that you will get sleepy. But when you eat living food, you will live. And part of the living meaning you will be alert, you will be able to concentrate more. So be careful. Be careful of that bun chow. Be careful of sipato. Eat the right food. How do you get to organize yourself in getting the right food? Because you've got a lot of work. Set aside time to go buy food that are good for you. Vegetables, like I've mentioned. If you've got a lot of work, maybe cook them in bulk. Or I suggest cook them in bulk of maybe food that can cover you for 3 days. I can imagine how nice it is by the time you have just finished reading and everything has been in and you feel hungry and the work is still there, but you just quickly open your fridge, get that container where you have packed this nutritious food, warm them up, eat them, drink your water, you get back to your work. Unlike when you prepare, because preparing food also takes a lot of time. So my advice and my suggestion to you, let's cook food in bulk, proper food, and put them aside, pack them aside. Things like dried food, nuts, keep them in a particular container. You know, when you need a snack, you are snacking on the proper thing, not snacking on things that will drop your sugar level. For the body, for you to be rejuvenated, for you to be alert, for you to concentrate better, it is important that you exercise. What is exercise? You can skip. You can take a walk. Just going out in the air, more especially in roads where there is not a lot of dust. Walk. Just that walk sort of makes your body to be active, and it opens up areas that are tied up, your neck, your arms. and it helps you to concentrate better. Again, I say, while you are exercising, drink plenty of water. The other thing that is important is that you should sleep enough. Hey, madam, no. Sleeping this time, what are you suggesting? I would say in a week where you've got a tight schedule and you've given yourself, majority of students sometimes take 4 hours sleep, others 6 hours at most. My suggestion is that one day have a full 8-hour sleep. In the event that you are having those small sleepless night, one day have a day where you sleep fully 8 hours. Why? You are helping your body to recharge, so that by the time you are going to, or on that day that you are going to write your exam, you don't experience a lockdown, meaning your brain can jam if you did not sleep well. So you don't experience a brain jam. You don't experience a situation where when you have studied everything, by the time you want to write, everything can't come. So you need to just set up a habit. I study 6 hours some days, I study 4 hours some days. You sleep few hours some days, you sleep 4 or 6, but the other day, make sure you have that full sleep. Why? When you sleep enough, you are helping your brain to absorb everything that you have studied and to be able to store it up, and you will not lose it. By the time you want to retrieve it, everything will be stacked at their own and the right place in your brain. What are the benefits of being organized? When we are organized, it saves our time. Meaning, if everything is in place, your space is in place, your body is rejuvenated, you've got plenty of water and you've eaten the right food, you would have spared yourself a lot of time of just looking around things, and in that you will be able to reduce a lot of anxiety. And when you are not anxious, you are stress-free. And when you are stress-free, it will help you to concentrate better, meaning you will be able to store up a lot of information, and the lot of information that you'll be able to retrieve during exam time. And as you are concentrating and you find that you are understanding your things, you are having enough time to study and you're getting more information, your motivation to study further sort of improves more. But the end goal and the thing that has called you to come to UNISA is that when you are organized, it will help you at the end of everything to achieve your goal, which is to pass your modules. And I'm thinking, when you pass your module, you will have achieved that which has called you to come to UNISA. I would say this is the end of my session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tina, for sharing with us some very valuable tips of getting organized. I was hoping that we could get some questions. Let me just see if there are any questions specifically about your topic. No, it doesn't seem like there are specific questions, so we will then move on to the next workshop or the next session, which is time management. If you click on the Q&A button in Teams, you are able to post questions, so you're still welcome to send us your questions. We will then attend to them after each session, or we will also have a question and answer session at the end of all our sessions. Okay, so now we'll be on to preparing for success and time management. This is quite an important part of your UNISA studies, is to be very organized in terms of how you plan your time. And a lot of this has also got to do with how you prioritize the different activities that you need to attend to. So although we all wish we had more time, the important thing is what we do with the time that we do have. So what we are saying here is that even if we only have a very limited a number of hours in a day available to spend on our studies, it's also important to think about how we can optimally use this time. Sorry about that. Time management strategies can help us better use the time we do have by creating a schedule that works for us. You can learn to manage your time more successfully, and the first step to do is an audit of how you are currently spending your time. So what we can do is, how should I be spending my time? If you look on the screen now, I'm sharing with you an idea of these are the different activities that we may engage in a week. So if you over a week keep track of the time that you're spending on the different activities that you're involved in, you might be surprised that you spend quite a lot more time on activities such as hanging out with friends or surfing the web or spending time on social media. So it's important for you to get an understanding and a realistic understanding of how you are currently spending your time. So once you've looked at the number of hours that you spend on these activities, you can then go and take a look at what are some of these activities that I actually need to spend less time on, and to reserve the study time. I would need to, for example, spend less time on talking on the phone, doing emails, Facebook, so that I can attend to my studies. So using this kind of audit for checking how much time you are currently spending on different activities, and then also seeing which of these activities must I spend less time on, so they're not my priorities at the moment, and which activities do I need to then even negotiate that other family members or friends or colleagues can assist me so that I can be able to spend more time on my studies. So time management and priorities, if you do this activity, you will actually find that you do have enough time for your studies without necessarily losing sleep or giving up on your social life or being involved with other activities that are very important for you. But the one thing that is very realistic is that you may have less time for discretionary activities than you did in the past. So discretionary activities are things such as spending time on social media, watching television, attending a lot of family functions. So unfortunately, something somewhere has to give. That's part of time management and why it's important to keep our goals and our priorities in mind. So once you find yourself spending more time on those discretionary activities and less on your studies, it is valuable for you to go and think about your goals. What is the reason why you thought about studying at UNISA? By what time or what year did you have in mind to complete your degree? Why is it important for you to complete your degree? So those are the things we can think about when we decide actually each day how we will be spending our time. The other part is to learn how to use the hours you do have as effectively as possible, especially your study hours. So when we talk about note making a bit later, that is an example of how we can use our study time very effectively. An example is that you may be planning to study for 3 hours in an evening, but then you procrastinate, you get caught up in a conversation, you lose time to check email and text messages, you may be listening to loud music while reading a textbook. Then maybe you actually spend 4 hours, and I'll put it in brackets, studying, or in quotes, but you only got 2 hours of actual work done. So you end up behind and feeling like you're still studying way too much. So again, it's important for us to think about how we use the time that we have available effectively, so that if we decide to sit down and study for 3 hours, we get actual 3 hours done for the evening. So the goal of time management then, and the strategies you can use, is to actually get that 3 hours of studying done, or that 2 hours of studying done in the time that you've allocated, but then also thinking about how you can make enough time for other priorities in your life. So firstly, we'll take a look at some long-term planning. The basic objective of long-term planning is to gain an overview of the academic activities over the whole year, and to make sure that you keep track of all important dates. These include submitting assignments, preparing for group discussions, preparing for examinations, writing examinations, ensuring that you meet all your commitments on time. And how you execute your long-term planning is to set long-term objectives. So something that could help you do that is to get a year planner or a diary. It can be electronic, but it's also a good idea to think about how you can make it very visual. So an effective way of doing that is if you have a year planner up on a wall somewhere, where you will be able to see it and where you will be able to be reminded every day of your long-term planning. What you need to do on the year planner is to then mark all the important dates on your calendar. So using your study guides and your tutorial letters, you would then mark important dates such as the due dates for assignments, as well as setting your long-term objectives. Preparing for assignments and exam. Your main objective is to master the content for each module in order to complete your portfolio or to pass your exam for a specific module or subject. You can use what we call the 60-30-10 principle here. So here are some basic guidelines to help you reach your goals. You can use 60% of your time on general preparation to complete and submit all the assignments to enable you to give your full attention to studying. You can use 30% of your time for intensive study and to grasp the basic concepts included in the course content. And you can use 10% of your time for exam preparation. So this includes answering questions, going over exam papers from previous years, and then also discussing questions with your other students in your study group, as well as your lecturers or e-tutors. The benefits of long-term planning is that with your year planner, you'll be able to clearly see that you've made provision for each of the days in your academic schedule. You will know what type of activity and which subject you will spend time on each day. You can regularly refer to your year planner to check your progress, and this can really motivate you. You will not have to worry about the future because you have planned your time so that you can meet all your commitments. Knowing that you've done this will give you more peace of mind, and this is very important in keeping you motivated. So what we are saying here is that you will not constantly be thinking about not being on track and that you haven't done enough, because you would have your long-term plan and you will be able to track how you are progressing with your plan. The next step would then be to complete a weekly time planner, and we call this a master's schedule. So here is an example of a master's schedule for a student who is working full-time, but obviously it can be easily adapted for somebody who is not working but only studying, or anything in between. So on this weekly planner, the green time slots indicate when the student is planning to study, And if we count those green time slots, we can see that this particular student has allocated 25 hours per week to be able to manage their workload. Some of the things when you set up your weekly planner is also to think about whether you can make time in the mornings, for example, by getting up earlier and studying before you start preparing for your day, or if it better suits you, whether you can stay up later and then just get up later. So also take into consideration the times that is more suitable for you to study in terms of how you study better in the morning or early in the morning or then late at night. So a master schedule clearly shows when you can do the work you've planned in your year planner. Your master schedule will not change from week to week, so you can make a few copies and just update them each week. So for example, let's say this planner that you are seeing in front of you, you could make copies of this, and then at the end of each week, maybe on a Sunday evening, you could just sit down and fill in those green time slots, what particular work, which particular modules you'll be spending time on in those time slots, so that for the rest of the week you are then sorted. You don't have to think about when you go and sit down to study, which module am I actually supposed to be sitting and doing. So your weekly study schedule, you could use the following guidelines. As I've mentioned, you can use about 15 to 30 minutes every Sunday evening to plan your weekly study schedule. You can take a copy of your master schedule and write down everything you have to do during the following week. So for example, there could be meetings, there could be urgent visits, important social gatherings, or important tasks that you need to complete. Now consult your year planner to see what study activity you should deal with during the week. For example, there could be an assignment due date, and that will then guide you in terms of the section of the work that you should master every day. And beyond that, you don't really have to do your weekly planning in any more detail than this. So the most important thing would just be to see for each of the slots that you've allocated for your studies, which module are you going to focus on, and whether there are any important due dates that will guide you in terms of the time that you're spending on each module. So basically, in a nutshell, that is about time management. I just want to check if there are any questions that we need to be available. Okay, thank you, Arnold. You've answered some of the questions for us, so I'll just publish them. If there are any questions now about time management, you're welcome to post that, or you can post it while you're listening to the note-making session, and then we will attend to those questions after the session. Elsabe, you are welcome to start with your presentation.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Elsabe Mill, and I'm also one of the staff members of the Directorate for Counselling and Career Development. And today, as part of the program on Prepare for Success, I will be talking to you about note making. The first theme that I want to speak about is the importance for you to develop effective reading skills. And to master your study material, it's important that you make notes of what you read. And that's why reading and note making go together. You need to develop and apply effective reading techniques. Now, there are 4 different reading techniques that I would like to discuss with you. The first one is speed reading. That is reading very quickly through your study material without skipping anything. And this is a very effective technique at the beginning when you receive all your study material for your different modules, that you take some time to speed read through all the material, study material, the tutorial letters for one specific or for each of your modules that you've registered for. That will give you an overview of what you will be covering for the whole year, and it also helps your brain to understand what will need to be mastered through the whole semester or year. The second reading technique is skimming. This is a very quick way of reading, getting quick overview of your material, skipping some information to decide if material is useful for your purpose, and then to help you to identify keywords. Now, skimming as a reading technique is important once you have done your planning. We've heard in the previous presentation, when you do your planning and you know which chapter you need to study, to skim through that one chapter to get a quick overview of the material, to see what is the learning outcomes, to see how the chapter is structured, to see whether there's graphs that need to be interpreted and what the summary says about the chapter. Because as speed reading gives you an overview of the full study material for a module, by skimming through it, you will get an overview of the chapter that you need to study at that specific time. Then we also have a third reading technique, which is scanning, and that is the fastest kind of reading, running your eyes quickly over the material to find information, such as looking for a telephone number or a word in a dictionary. You can, for instance, also use scanning when you look for specific language of a specific study field that you're not familiar with. Often when you start studying, you will see words that you've never heard before, and it can be quite helpful to make your own little dictionary so that you can write the word down and the meaning so that you can refer back to this subject-specific words that you pick up in your study material. And then the last one, the last reading technique is your study reading. And that helps you to focus effectively and thoughtfully on each paragraph that you are reading and developing your understanding. If you think of the skimming process, you've now quickly read through the chapter, and now once you've gone through everything and you've got an overview of what you want to study, you will start study reading each paragraph to see what are the keywords and what is the information that you want to summarize when you make your notes. I apologize for this. It seems as if I have a problem. My screen is frozen. Let's just see whether I can fix that. The next topic is we've now learned or heard about different reading techniques, and now we are going to link the reading techniques with note making. Now, why do we make notes? Notes act as a permanent record of the work that you've studied on a section of your study material. Say, for instance, you are interrupted and you quickly need to step out to do something. When you come back, you can look at your notes to know exactly where you've left off and where you need to pick up again. So that's that permanent record of the work that you've studied and made notes of. Notes also help you to create your ultimate study guide. The ultimate study guide means that you have looked for the keywords, you've summarized that. There are some information that you've decided is not necessary to be summarized, so you've reduced it into your ultimate study guide. Notes also are the first step in expanding your network of memory strategies. So as you use different ways of note making, it will help you to memorize your study material so that you can recall that in the exam. Notes are a link between study reading, we spoke about that, and answering questions or even asking questions. Note making can help you organize your thoughts for asking questions. It seems as if I have a problem again. Let me just see whether I can move it on.
Elsie?
Lisa?
I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah.
Your slide for actively engage with your studies is now on the screen.
Okay, can I continue with that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. It is important that you actively engage with your studies, and that would involve asking questions and then trying to find the answers in your study material and making notes of that. You make links between your studies, what you know, and what you, your basic knowledge base, what you know, and information that you've gained from everyday life. And actively engaging your studies mean that you make notes. You also revise at the end and the beginning of each new study session. When one talks about actively engaging with your studies, it is important that you try to use as many of your senses when you make notes and when you memorize. What I mean by that is that you use your eyes to read, you use your mouth you read, you use your mouth to repeat what you've said so that your ears can hear, and then you use your hands and your muscles to make specific notes. So it's not a passive process, you're actively engaging with your studies. It is important that you also reflect on your studies. Use questions from the study guides and from your learning outcomes to test yourself. It is important to look at the learning outcomes at the beginning of your specific chapter and also at the summary at the end, so that you can ask questions and test yourself to see whether you understand and whether you can recall that information. You also need to reflect your understanding of the material, since this will help you to prepare for the exams. I always say to students, the time to test yourself to see whether you remember material that you've studied is at your study table and not in the exam, because when you test yourself and you can't remember everything, it indicates that you need to go over the material again. There are many different note-making techniques, and it's important that you find one or a number of specific techniques that will that works for you. I think one can, later in the presentation, I will show you examples of different note-making techniques in the attempt to stimulate you to see that there's different ways that you can make note-making, but also that different texts will require different types of note-making. Understand that the different study material requires different methods, and reflect on which methods do you use and which ones do you think you can add to your range. The different note-making styles is visual note-making techniques and narrative note-making techniques. Let us look at the different visual note-making techniques. There is 7 different visual note-making techniques, and they are mind maps, spidergrams, branching notes, clustergrams, tables, flowcharts, and organograms. Let's look at them each individually quickly. Here is a mind map that was created on a specific mind map program on the computer. And here you will see that the title is website creation. That is the title of the mind map. And then the headings of the important sections to recall is design, back end, and front end, and marketing. And you will see that if you look at the design itself, there are the subheading of design consists of 4 different subheadings, which is layout, images, colors, and fonts. In the same way, the back end has got 4 subheadings. The front end has 4 subheadings, and this is an example of what a mind map can look like that you can create on your computer. You can obviously also use that to, you can also draw a mind map by just creating it with different colored pens in a freestyle. It need not always be on the computer. The next one is a spidergram. Now you can see that here are there's some information in red, and then there's some information data that's been entered in turquoise, but behind it you can see that there's different axes, and they are each connected to each other to form a type of a spider web. Now what's very nice here is that you can add your data or summary of some information on the spider web, and you can then compare the two things with each other to see what is the difference on a specific axis that you've described. Axis, then you can see what is the difference and where's the greatest difference in the two sets of information. That is an example of a spidergram. Then we've got a branching note. You can see again in the middle, we've got the title of this branching note is how to make mind maps. Look at the different colors that is used for each of the branches, and you can see a mind map. They say you can use paper, and what type of paper? It can be blank, you can do it landscape. Where do you start? Or it can be in terms of the style of the mind map, which is fun, where the emphasis is it personal, is it beauty? But you can see it looks like a tree. There's the thick branch and the thinner branches with more specific. This would be the heading, and then these would be the subheading, and then the subheading information. Clustergram, here you can see the visual content you need to use, that you've got certain clusters of information. Again, it can be a screenshot, a meme, images, GIFs, infographics and charts, and then you can add some information as a descriptor of that cluster, of each of the clusters around. If we look at the visual note-making styles, here are tables. You've got 5 students, you've got 5 different activities, and you can then populate this table so that you can very easily see who of the 5 students were the most active in reciting in class, who was the most active in terms of tidying up desks after class. Is there somebody that's constantly the top achiever? Is it somebody that's constantly the last one in the group? So you can look at information, summarize it, and make a note in a table, and at one glance you can get all the information. Here we've got a flow chart, and this specific flow chart is whenever you have a process that needs to happen, one can summarize and make the note in terms of a flow chart. Here you will receive email. This is more for training purposes. Receive an email or a call from a customer. Is the concern on the FAQ page? And then if it is, you reply according to the FAQ, and then you will see that the situation is dealt with. If the concern is not on the FAQ page, then you direct it to the supervisor. He provides or she provides the answer. They add it to the FAQ, you answer the client, and the situation is solved. So a flow chart, specifically here you can see what the process is to get to the result that you are aiming to achieve. Organograms. One might, in certain study fields, have to make a summary of the important departments in an organization and what would that consist of, and then you can use an organogram to actually look at what the specific positions are and who falls under which individual on a specific organogram. These are a number of visual note-making styles that I've just given you examples of. If you are a visual learner, I want you to think of how you make your notes and then look at the different visual note-making styles that I have presented here for you. And if you do an internet search, you can get many examples of how to make any of the examples that I've shown you, so that you can look whether you can expand your range of visual note-making styles. I would really hope that this has given you some ideas of what you can use to summarize and to make notes if you're a visual learner. If you are more a narrative note-making learner, then there are about 8 different styles that I want to just briefly show you as well. We've got linear notes, listing, timeline notes, keywords, paragraph methods, question methods, segmenting and labeling. Now those two usually go together, but let's quickly look at examples of these narrative note-making styles. I showed you this example. I included that chapter 1 summary. I think a lot of our students have been taught at school how to make specific summaries, and this was one of the first styles that we have as narrative learners, how to make a narrative summary of a chapter. We're all familiar with that. Then we can look at listing. That is just basically looking at different lists, it can be a numerical list, 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, where you would make a list and just a few keywords to describe each point in the specific list. So that's listing. Then there's a timeline narrative note making that actually indicates specific dates. You will see in this example 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, and which each of these dates there would be keywords that would describe the specific what happened in the specific date. This could be very helpful in the study of, for instance, in history, where you would see a timeline and what's happened over that time. In the study of politics and African politics, how certain organizations have developed and what's happened at specific critical timeline notes. Then we get a keyword method, which is also links with the mnemonics. When you do your memory strategies, here you just use one word so that you can remember all the important headings in a chapter that you want to remember. If you look at strategy here, it refers to stability, target, retrenchment, achievable, teamwork, education, growth, yield. So if you see strategy, you know exactly which topic to cover under each letter of this word. Paragraph method, again, because it's a narrative note-making style, the paragraph method, you will summarize each paragraph with the key information so that you have a narrative summary. We've got the question method. With the question method, you take an A4 sheet of paper and you draw a vertical line down so that you have on the A4 sheet, you've got a third of the page is one column and the 2/3 of the rest of the page. And then you will ask a question in the column on the left, and you will answer it on the right. If we look here, question 5, which 5 steps should I follow? And then they give you the 5 steps. What's very nice about this method is that you can take a blank sheet of paper and cover the answers and test yourself all the time. Can I provide the answers? So this is a question method. You can also draw a horizontal line between each of the questions so that they don't run into each other. Segmenting, you can just see that there's a main title and that there's different segments that you want to cover to discuss your main title. And as I mentioned, this usually goes together with labeling. And if we look at our next slide, here you would see there's 4 different segments, and then you will get the segments will be labeled and there will be the keywords under it. It's important that you reflect on your studies and ask yourself questions such as, what information have I collected about learning and my study material so far? Is there something that I can add to what I'm already doing? How is this useful and for what? It refers to your current reflection on your knowledge and your skills. How can this information help you? And how can I apply this to other areas of study or to other modules that I'm registered for? There would be an evaluation form for the feedback about this workshop. I will appreciate it if everybody can complete it. Thank you very much for your participation. I want to, before I leave, just encourage you to contact the Directorate for Counselling and Career Development. You can send us an email at counselling@unisa.ac.za. You can contact us telephonically on this number. And then lastly, I want to encourage you to use our website. The Directorate for Counselling and Career Development has a comprehensive website that covers your career development, how to manage your career, how to manage your studies, and how to manage yourself. And there's a wealth of knowledge there that I would encourage you to become familiar with and use regularly as a resource. Also, we've got our Facebook and our Twitter. Please make contact with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elsa. You've provided us with a very useful overview. And we hope that, as you have indicated, that students would then be able to reflect on how they are currently making notes and maybe think about incorporating some of these other options depending on the modules that they are studying. I would just want us to go through the questions. Some of the questions we have been attending to them as we were going through the sessions. Some of you asked about whether these sessions will be available for download or be able to view after we've ended the live sessions. What we will be doing is that after tomorrow's session, we will be publishing these videos on our website. The web address for counselling is there up on your screen at the moment. So that is how you would be able to view the presentations that we shared this morning there live on the system. What we will also be doing is, in addition to the live videos, we will also be uploading our individual presentations so that you will be able to go through them at your own time. Tina, are you still with us? If you could maybe, one of the questions asked, I'm not sure if the person meant, is it or isn't it good for the body or mind to listen to loud music after reading, for example, putting on a headset? So the question is it a good idea to listen to loud music maybe while studying?
Thank you for the question. It's an interesting question, of course. somebody is asking, is that a good question? And I'm like, yo, can I throw it into the floor? But I don't have somebody to can say, yay, I see you there at the back. But from my side, I would like to say loud music depends on an individual. But one thing I know, for better concentration, it also depends that loud music, how loud it is, because at this moment I'm not able to measure the loudness of the music. One, people stay at different places. I do not want to use one measure. There is somebody who stays at a place where the neighbor are having loud music, and they themselves do not really have a challenge with concentrating with that. If that music, it's music that is not removing you from your books, but it is able to capture every other noise around you, then you can say, I can work with loud music around me, because I'm thinking of that student who has their space as the only place where they can study. And here they've got a neighbor who is also noisy. So if maybe the only time that you want to study, it is that time where that a neighbor is making that loud music, then it means you should be able to channel your mind so that it can absorb or close off from this other noise. So in a nutshell, I would say, yes, at times it is important to have that music for others, because if I'm not overlapping into others' presentation, one of the other things is that there are certain music, if you have helped them, because there is a certain part of learning, we call it association, you would find that that particular part of your chapter, you associate it with that particular music. So every time you think of that music, then you will know, I would have associated it with that particular chapter that I was reading. I don't know if I make sense. If I was having slides, I was going to open them for you now and show you when I'm talking of association. Meaning, if I would give an example, for some of you, you remember certain concepts because you have heard them loudly. Maybe something fell in your room while you were studying. So every time that sound come, you will remember, and I remember it was when I was studying about cephalothorax. I was studying about photosynthesis. So in a nutshell, it all depends on an individual. I can say it is not all right, but for somebody whose environment is not that, allow it and then use it as an association to capture your information. I hope I've done a bit of answering. My colleagues, you can add.
Thank you, Tina. I think that was quite comprehensive, but I would also just want to link it to a question that one of the other students asked. How can I try to study if I stay in a loud environment? So I'm not sure, I know that you covered some aspects now in your answer, but if there's anything else that you can share with students, stay in loud environments, how can you manage that if it's not working for you?
Okay, if that is not working for you, I would say and I would suggest, if it is within your reach meaning you can afford, one of the suggestions that I have is that maybe buy yourself earphones that can plug and divert other sound away from you. That would be the one that you can do for yourself. If it is neighbors that are people that you are close to, as part of the getting organized, it is that if it's people that are good to interact or they communicate better with you and they are good neighbors, you can just indicate Zbali or Maki, we will be getting into exams. Then you negotiate the space to say, if you can just take the volume down. Some of the people, they are quite cooperating, but yes, there are those that are not into cooperation. So instead of working yourself up, get yourself earphones. so that those earphones can divert the other songs. There are earphones that are ranging. You take part of your stipend or you take part of your pocket money, invest in those better earphones, and then you know that you will be ready for the exams.
Thank you, Tina. There are some of you that asked for copies of the time audit as well as the master schedule or the weekly schedule that I spoke about. We will be sharing those with you, but in the meantime, you will also be able to see on the question and answers, Arnold, one of our colleagues, posted a link to our time management resources on the counselling website. So if you go to the counselling website and you go to studying more effectively, you'll be able to access many of these resources there, but we will also share them with the whole group after the session. Let me see some more questions. There was a question here about, I spoke earlier about the weekly schedule. So the question is, does your weekly schedule change when you have started writing exams, and how do you balance all the modules? So Arnold responded to the question by saying that you can use your master schedule for the exam dates and the times, and these are your non-negotiables. Within the week, you will also then plan for your fixed study times in order to cover the work. And then, of course, to get to now when it's exam time, you will need to adjust your weekly time schedule, because remember now you're not busy, for example, preparing for assignments, but you are busy preparing for the exams. It could also have happened that throughout the semester there were maybe you are registered for 3 modules. 2 of the modules you managed quite well to work through all the study material, but there's now 1 module which you are a bit behind in. So it's important to keep your weekly planning quite, like Arnold said, you're dynamic, so that you can then pay attention to all the modules. But you yourself will know that based on your experience throughout the semester of particular modules, which modules you may need to spend more time on and which you will spend less time on. It is my, I want to say my belief or my opinion, that if you are quite well organized from the beginning of the semester, and you are planning your time and you are sticking as close as possible to your study timetable, it is not necessary for you to now think about that just before the exams, I now need to study day and night. So also thinking about if you are quite consistent throughout the semester or throughout the year in terms of how you study, it also makes it easier for you to get into the exam preparation space, but Arnold will talk about that a bit more tomorrow. There's somebody else who also asked about the study material content, which is too much for the study time that's available in a semester. So the question is, how does one squeeze all of the content coverage in the shortest time available between assignments and the exam period? So Arnold shared with us, you know, you could go and review some of the information that we shared with you this morning. But the 3 most important things would then be to go and get an overview of the work that you need to do for each of the modules, keeping in mind those non-negotiable dates like your exam dates and your assignment submission dates, and then to spread the content of the work equally over the available time that you have. So initially, in terms of time management, your investment could be, you know, maybe an hour or 2 that you're sitting and planning your studies, but the outcome or the benefit that you gain from it is that you then don't really need to spend a lot of time for the rest of the semester or the year on time management, because you would have sorted that out at the beginning of the semester. Tina, yes, also one for you. Hi everyone, I would like to know if it's important to include exercising during exam preparation, as this can tire you and be unable to stay up. So Arnold just shared that moderate exercise can build energy. Of course, don't overextend yourself, keep it moderate to what your body can accommodate. Tina, I'm not sure if you've got anything else to add to Arnold's response.
Yes, I think Arnold answered it so much perfectly in that indeed you are not supposed to do extensive exercise. If I were to go back to my slide, what I indicated there is that even a walk, just taking a walk, because what you find is that most of the time we are sitting, and because we are anxious to want to achieve, and we sit, eat, sleep, sit, eat, sleep, more especially now that we were in lockdown and there are still a bit of restrictions. So what you can do, just taking a walk. Sometimes it's even in your room where you just do some bit of stretches, you jump around. The other thing can just be to just dance. You just stay in your room, put on that music. Now there is Jerusalem that is being, I'm not advertising Jerusalem, guys, but I'm just saying it is one of the songs that is now all over internationally also. So you can just take, as a break, you put it on. You dance. After just that little bit of a dance, you feel rejuvenated. You feel alive. But over and above, you still get motivated to get back to your books. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Another question, hi, will a monthly study schedule be as effective as a weekly one? I have been struggling to stick to a weekly one because weeks are different. Arnold responded that yes, indeed, sticking to a schedule can be quite tricky, but a schedule is not static. Your master schedule can be like the static or the typical fixed things happening in a month or a week. Now see how you can manage adapting your schedule by constructing a dynamic living schedule. So you will be negotiating your schedule to reach your intended outcomes. So I think that puts it quite well. Whether your preference is to do a monthly schedule or a weekly schedule, the important thing is that your master schedule, again, whether it's a weekly or monthly schedule, will contain all those fixed things that you need to attend to over a week. So for example, you need to go and work from this time to this time. You need to go and fetch the children from school from this time to this time. You need to fix lunch, you need to fix dinner. So those are kind of fixed things in your day that you will note on your schedule, but that the schedule is not static. Of course, just because we are focused on our studies and we are studying, it's not to say that life will not continue. So it's also important to then, when something happens, that you are able to adjust your schedule so that you're still able to get through your study material. Elsabe, here's a question for you. I struggle with making notes. What I do is, when making notes, I write word for word or maybe change a few words. Help. So Arnold noted that
Lisa, you cut away. Your sound is down.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to put on mute for a short moment. We've got some military helicopters flying overhead, so it's just interrupting the broadcast. I apologize for that. So Arnold noted that the information in your thinking, by understanding the work, then start jotting down overall or main concepts or headings, and then see how you can expand the headings. So the notes should represent your understanding. Elsabe, do you have anything to add to this question?
Yes, I think Arnold's question, his answer was very comprehensive. It is important for you that your notes indicate your understanding of what you've read. I also think that the specific student, I would refer her to do a search on the internet on how do you identify keywords. I think that often with note making, the aspects that students have problems with is that when they read a paragraph, they don't know what are the keywords that they need to summarize. And I would actually recommend that that student look and Google and do a few searches to see how do I identify the keywords in a specific paragraph, and then to apply it to her studies as she makes notes.
Just as a further kind of tip for, especially for us as UNISA students, is that your learning outcomes for each of your study units in your study guides are very important signposts that you can use in terms of the aspects that you need to focus on. So when you study, you could then use your learning objectives, even turn them into questions. And as you're making your notes, Elsabe spoke about the Cornell method or the question and answer method. So that method actually works quite well if you would want to use your study objectives or learning objectives as a guideline for you in terms of what you should focus on when you are making your notes. There's just, as far as I can see, there's just one last question. I'm just not sure to what extent we'll be able to answer that, but the question is, would UNISA consider online classes going forward? This will help lots of students, especially those who are not privileged to attend classes due to work or other challenges. Are there any of my colleagues who would want to comment on that?
Lisa, of course, there are the online MyUNISA tutorials, and there will be training on using MS Teams for students. Just check the announcements in your email. There won't be formal classes, I think, so one would be led by what is being announced in the tutorial letters or online under MyUNISA for each specific module. It will differ from module to module, but there are quite a lot of resources within your course material already, and of course you can communicate with your lecturers on aspects of the work that you would feel should need some more elaboration.
Thank you, Arnold. I was also just thinking in terms of students connecting with each other. Now that all of us are, just having to use Microsoft Teams, which all of us have access to more often, I would imagine that that could also be a very useful platform for students to connect to each other and have that more kind of visual interaction. So maybe, as Arnold said, there won't be full-time online classes, but taking more note of the resources that are available on the UNISA website, on MyUNISA specifically, and also keeping your eye open on MyUNISA or your email, your MyLife email, for announcements about events such as these, which seem to be taking place now more often as we need to make use of the online services more effectively.
Lisa, may I add, one should be careful of services being offered by outside companies. Remember, your first line of information, your very first class, is the directions that the lecturer tells you in the tutorial letter how to address the class or information in the study guide. Thank you.
Arnold, thank you very much for that. There's just one last question that came in that we can look at. The question is, what makes the 60-30-10 rule effective? Arnold, I see that you are going to reply to the post. Would you mind then just sharing with us?
Yes, this is my view. The idea is that for 60-30-10, so it starts with a broad base which narrows and then has got sort of like a focused, concentrated point. So the idea is that you will do a lot of work in figuring out, understanding, getting associations, seeing the work in its framework, and then you will start consolidating this and focusing in, and then you do your assignments. So first you need to understand, and there's a lot of activity going with that. You can make notes, you can use internet resources, you check your tutorial letters, your study guides, your textbooks, you participate in your online tutorials, you do all of that, and you build a solid base of understanding. And then from all of that, you start consolidating, and you pull things together, and you start formalizing them into formal notes, formal outlines, formal mind maps. And then the 10 would be where you start asking yourself questions. Can I recall this? Can I answer this? Now, all of this is interwoven. Sometimes you'll be doing more 60, sometimes more 10, sometimes you'll be doing them together. But this is an idea of how you will go about trying to make sense of the work, how you will go about learning it, how you will go about consolidating it with assignments, and how you will go about reaching the top by writing examinations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arnold. That was the last question that we received. I think just to end this session, a reminder about the session 2 that will take place tomorrow, also from 10 o'clock. We may finish a bit earlier because there's 2 topics that we'll be covering tomorrow, and that is exam preparation, getting ready for the exams, and then also stress management. So we hope that we will be able to meet you there. As I've shared previously, after tomorrow's session, we'll be posting the videos on or the recordings of these sessions on our website, as well as the presentations, and also sharing any other resources that we spoke about during our presentations. I would really want to appreciate my colleagues, the presenters, and also all of you who have attended. We know that it's not easy always to find the time, and there are also issues with connectivity and data. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and we hope to join up with you again tomorrow. Thank you.
Yes, and please do that feedback. We would really love to hear what you have to say, and also what suggestions and comments you have.
Thank you, Arnold. I will also be sending out the link to the feedback form to everyone who've attended today's session, and then again for tomorrow's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.